right, y'all. We have another wonderful, transformative, refreshing. I hope y'all are getting refreshed as you are listening to these different conversations. And I hope you're not just listening. I hope you're allowing the Lord to speak to your heart and speak to your mind through these different conversations. And we did it in this conversation format because there's just something really powerful, I think, about hearing other people talk through what they are experiencing. And it's relatable, right? It's going to be something that's very relatable for all of us. I think um, it's important for us to know each other's stories, to know that we're not alone, that we're not the only one that are going through these things. And so this event is designed to support you in you reclaiming the joy and the energy that you need. Yes, yes. And my guest for today's conversation is a friend ain't even the word for what Angie is to me. There are just some people in your life that you have just a much deeper relationship with that goes into so many different directions. We can talk about business, we can talk about ministry, we can talk about parenting, we can talk about our marriages. And not only that, she and I actually lead together in ministry together. And so I could not have done an event like this and not asked her to be a part of it. She has a lot of wisdom. She is an extrovert that people absolutely adore them. So if this is your first time meeting her, you will understand why, because she's extremely authentic and she's extremely vulnerable and transparent in her conversations with people. And so I think that you are going to really enjoy our time together. So, so welcome, Angie.
Oh, what an intro. Yeah, like pass the Kleenex. But yeah, I was just saying earlier, I was like, you like my sister, cousin, girlfriend. Like, yeah, yeah, it goes deep. Yeah, I
Yes,
appreciate
it's way deep. It's way deeper than just a regular old friendship. So,
it.
and even though that's true, it's for you being a part of this is because of the work that you do and all the different ways that you support people, whether it's in your job, the one that helps your family pay their bills and take care of your family, but also in the work that you do on the ministry side. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to share with them a little bit about who you are as a business leader and what brought you to where you are right now.
So I have a nonprofit, I would say HR background. Where I currently work right now, it's career development, career transition type of company. I have been a senior consultant within that company. I've been a vice president of the branch I was over. Currently, right now, where I'm at, I am the quality manager for North America. So I handle quality for Canada and the US. I have a team, I manage, I lead, I sit in leadership discussions, trying to see how we can change the program, how we can make it better. So to me, it's just been like kind of like this uphill thing that I wasn't expecting. And somebody saw something in me and said, hey, I'm going to put you on this track for leadership. And at first, of course, I was freaked out. Like, I don't know what you see, but I don't think I'm ready for all this. But now that I'm in it, I definitely love it. And I do see how I would say the two or the three different things that I do besides working in corporate, doing leadership in that way. But also we do counseling. I do counseling on the side, do living well, as Kendra mentioned earlier, with her and her husband. But I would say ministry wise, it's probably been since I was maybe 22 or so. It's like 25 plus years in ministry, starting off as a volunteer, becoming a church staff member. Currently, I'm a part-time church staff member at the church we're at right now. But leading into leadership and being able to help make decisions and help different things on both sides has really been a blessing. And I love helping people grow, change, and really become the healthy people that, in my opinion, God's always designed us to be. It just takes work. But I would say that's like my core passion at the end of the day for everything. Or at least, yeah, I would say to me, I feel like that's the overarching theme of the work I do, whether it's in corporate or nonprofit, is really healthy teams, healthy environments, healthy culture. It's really important to me.
Yeah, I know there's, over the years, we've had lots of conversations about the importance of healthy leadership, because you have spent so much time in ministry. And this is the thing, like right now, I think that we're having a lot more conversations about the health of the people that are leading us because we are watching so many people in ministry specifically. I mean, we could talk all day long, of course, even about people that aren't in ministry that are in leadership positions, but I think that it really comes to the forefront when we are looking at people that we assume would be healthy
Mm-hmm.
because of the work that they do. We would assume that they are leading these healthy lives behind the scenes, and now we're finding out that's not true. And I'm actually imagining the women that are a part of a retreat like this, all of you are serving in these different professions, whether you are a nurse or you are a nonprofit leader or you are in ministry yourself. You are maybe you're a social worker, and people are assuming that, hey, you're spending all of your time helping people, and so obviously you are doing all of these things for yourself in the background, right? But that might
Right?
not be true, Angie. You
It's
and
not.
I know that might not be true at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I feel like with that is it's to me, especially let's talk about ministry. Like,
Mhm.
okay, like if I'm doing something ministry wise, the anointing of God literally comes upon me to help me do it.
Mhm.
Right? To me, there's an ease, there's an anointing. I can sense God with me. Ooh, when it's for me, you know what I mean? I have to work through it myself.
Mhm.
I have to work out my own salvation, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
to me, it's kind of like watching, I don't know, Grey's Anatomy, and you see these people who are just miraculous, amazing surgeons, and they can do all these things, but then on the side, their relationships are a hot mess. They smoking cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
why are you smoking cigarettes? Like, why is your life so jacked up? Like, when you can be so amazing over here. I just
Mhm.
think it's just, I don't know, human nature that it's easier for us to help people. It's almost sometimes you can get a high even from being busy, right? Like, I'm doing all these things. But then when you got to slow down and look at yourself and think about the things you need to do, that's harder. But to me, if you're willing to put the work in it, is so rewarding. And to me, I always tell people, your communication, your leadership, when all those things are healthy, it affects everything. It affects my marriage, it affects my relationship with my girlfriends, it affects how I raise my kids, it affects how I lead at my job. Because you pour out who you are, and eventually people are going to see it, and then they're like, "Oh, you ain't even who you say. You don't even do what you're telling me to do." So it's almost like
Mhm.
I don't think we're meaning to be hypocritical, but like sometimes we can be like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And then we don't do it for ourselves. And people be, but why you tell me to do it, but you won't do it? I just think it's harder to do than for me to try to encourage somebody else to do it or help somebody else do it. For me to do it myself, it just, at least I'm only speaking for myself.
Mhm.
It seems harder to do it for myself. And I have to really be about my business, like be intentional with loving on myself because it's easy for me to jump into like Captain Save or whatever, or I gotta take care of my family, or I need to go do this or do that for somebody. For some reason, that's just easier versus what about me just taking some time for myself? And I think
How,
that's why we see that for everybody because it's hard.
how did you learn that? What was there an experience that you had, or was it you observing other people? At what point did you realize the importance of that?
I think going through my own personal stuff, meaning like going through church hurt, going through broken friendships, broken
Mhm.
relationships, And I would say, honestly, one of the biggest critical, pivotal moments was my marriage. Me
Mhm.
and Dennis, like our first, what, I don't know, 5 years or so, they were not fun. They were hard. We had
Mhm.
really bad communication problems. Um, and I remember I had this one day because he would just stop talking to me like for some days. And I'd be like, what's wrong? And he'd be like, nothing. And I'd be like, I know something wrong. And he'd be like,
Right.
"Ain't wrong." And I was like, something wrong, but I'm gonna leave you alone because you won't talk to me. And in that quiet moment, I remember I just like, you know what? I'm scared to have this conversation with him, but I'm about to put my, this is literally how I said to myself, I'm about to put my big girl panties on and I'm gonna have a brave conversation and I'm gonna tell him how what he's doing makes me feel. And when I did that, I thought he was gonna trip. And he just didn't really reply to me, but like a day or so later, he's like, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I thought my way of talking to you was actually helping me not hurt you because I was afraid of saying something that would be hurtful. And so it started both of us on this journey of, well, why do we talk the way we talk? Because I used to be very passive. I might have been extroverted and like hype and all this other stuff, but when it came to hard conversations, I just wouldn't do them. Where he was more passive aggressive. So to me, that started the path of why do I communicate the way I do? What has happened to make me be like this? And how do I stop it? And what I found out was it had to do with childhood trauma,
Mhm.
issues like that. And I needed to heal. And then I would say later on through the years when I got into leadership and then started to experience different things, I was like, oh, you need to get this together, Angela, like on a much better, bigger level because I'm affecting much more people. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's so good. And it's actually a perfect tie-in to what we're actually going to be talking about today during our my conversation with you is we're talking about learning how to communicate better because it actually helps reduce the stress in your life. Like it becomes a byproduct. Like when we learn how to communicate effectively in our relationships, that actually brings the stress level down.
So helpful because you ever had like you need to talk to somebody and you kind of freaked out to talk about it. How much in your head you're like, okay, I need to say this, but what if they say this? You're just like in this internal circle, right, in your own brain. When
Yes.
you become more assertive, you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna call Kendra and we're gonna talk. You know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna stop doing this and we're gonna have this conversation. And the more you have the conversations, to me, the easier it becomes. And I don't think while I was in the process of trying to learn how to communicate with my husband and trying to learn how to communicate with people, and whether it was with, ministry or corporate, like I don't think as I was trying to learn how to have those, how much I was actually learning how to love on myself.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
later on when me and Jenna started doing classes and different things and teaching people and counseling communication, how much I realized, wow, like I learned how to love on myself. So to me, they're all connected. Peace and less stress, loving on yourself, communicating in a healthy manner. It's a whole connection piece to all that.
So tell us, what is that connection between you loving on yourself and you learning how to communicate better? What's that? What is that connection?
Angela's personal. All I can say is this is my personal experience and my opinion too.
Mhm.
It's healing. It
Mhm.
is emotional healing. I'm at the point now where I call trauma is your own personal David and Goliath story. It's your own Goliath.
Mhm.
And nobody, including God, can do it for yourself. God has done everything he's done at the cross. He's saying, yeah, you have been through some hurtful things, but I don't want you to ignore it anymore because when you ignore it, you're stuck in that area. I want you to confront it, just like the children of Israel. They ignored Goliath for how many days, right? And he was calling them all kind of stuff. That's trauma, right? Y'all ain't nothing. Y'all can't do nothing. I'm gonna kill y'all. If somebody say they're gonna kill you, right? That's
Mhm. That's traumatic.
that's traumatic.
Right.
So they were just like what we all do. I'm just let's just act like it's not there, right? Like,
Mhm.
and then you have a David. We all need to be that person that say, you know what? I'm tired of being bullied by my childhood experiences. And to me, even my adult experiences, once I started saying, hey, I'm tired of this. I don't want to be like this anymore. And I started dealing with it, processing it, confronting it, going to counseling. I always tell people I'm a counselor, get counseling myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm about that life.
Mhm.
um, as I started doing that, then I started seeing the value of me, meaning like I deserve to have a voice. I deserve to speak up for myself. I deserve to have boundaries. I deserve to have a healthy work environment. And if I can do something about that, you know what I mean? It's okay for me to speak up and say something. So for me, um, I feel like that's been kind of the connection piece.
Just like your smartphone needs regular charging, so do you. Without regular recharging, your energy and spirit can run out, leaving you feeling drained and ineffective. Join the Strong Her Leadership Coaching Cohort to build soul care habits that prioritize your well being. Nurture your inner self, not just to care for others, but to sustain your own health and happiness. Strengthen your capacity to lead with confidence and resilience. Prioritize yourself and see the difference it makes in your life and leadership. Learn more at strongher.me/leadership cohort. And I specifically wanted to talk to you because recently you and Dennis hosted a workshop for us about resolving conflict. And a big part of resolving conflict is about the type of communication that you use, right? Because we all have a communication style. And you talked about different kinds of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want us to kind of lean into in this conversation. So, first of all, I would like for you to first share with them what are those different styles of communication that you know that people have.
So there is passive, which that's pretty much my whole life, how I've been until probably, I don't know, last 10 years or whatever you want to say. So there's passive aggressive, there's assertive, and there's aggressive. And what I have been learning through studying different things is a lot of that's rooted in mindsets. And what I've added to that is that when I look at my own personal life and how I kind of became passive or how I just kind of, I don't know if it's a choice, I don't know what happened. But to me, some of it was what I was seeing in my home. Some of it was what made me feel safe, though. I remember feeling like as a kid, if I would just be quiet, and not say certain things, then I wouldn't get in trouble. I wouldn't be harshly corrected, which I was really afraid of. And I would just be kind of in the safe zone because I would be making that person happy, but I would be keeping myself safe. For some reason, that is what in my head as a kid, and of course, as kids, we don't know how to do, even adults, we don't really know how to really protect ourselves adequately. But for me, that's what I chose. Passive aggressive, of course, that's more of like, I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna crack a joke, and then I'm taking shots. Boop, 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 and you like, what they just say? Did they just come in? Was that a joke or did they mean it? Right? Aggressive to me is aggressive. It is exactly what it says. It can be very intimidating. It can be where I think my main thing with aggressive communication style is the person who's in the room with you having the conversation doesn't feel safe. That's one of the biggest things. Passive aggressive can be like that too. But I think there's a kind of, I'm trying to figure you out. Like, do you mean what you said? Like, I'm almost confusing. Like, what? Assertive to me is the way I like to present assertive is I can have a hard conversation with you, Kendra. We can have a hard conversation, but I know how to be respectful for myself, and I'm really desiring to be respectful to you at the same time. We can have a hard conversation, be respectful, be kind, and come to a solution. You know what I mean? I think the biggest thing with communication is ultimately I want to be heard, but our
Mhm.
self-protection and fears and all that stuff gets in the way. If I'm focused on protecting myself, I'm not focusing on me and you or me and my husband or whoever need to get on the same page. I'm more focused about myself.
I want to be heard. That's what communication is about.
Mhm.
That's what I just heard you share. And when you talked about, so I'm going to repeat those again. So you said there is passive communication style, there is passive aggressive communication style, aggressive, and then there is assertive.
Mhm.
When you talked about being passive,
Mhm.
so I'm thinking about the women that are going to be watching this, who you are watching this right now with, ladies. And I think that some of the stress that we sometimes feel where we start moving towards burnout is because we have been very passive in our communication
Mm-hmm. I
with.
know I don't have time, but I don't want to upset you, and I want you to get to your goal. So I'm gonna say yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And you describe the motivation for you, and we know that it may look different for everybody, but
Mhm.
when you talked about being passive, you talked about your motivation. Was it, you said it was safety?
Yeah, to me, it
Mhm.
was twofold. I wanted you to be happy with me.
Mhm.
And to me, the root of a lot of that was I was scared of rejection. I didn't want to make people upset, right? I
Mhm.
wanted people to be happy and in a good place with me. I wanted them to see me as a, either go-getter or a helper or whatever it was. But at the real root of all that was I want to feel safe. Because if you correct me or you go off on me or I upset you, you're going to say some harsh words and I'm not going to feel safe anymore. What I had to learn, when me and Dennis started processing our stuff, what we learned was that conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict actually is a very healthy thing. It's
Mhm.
just most of us haven't heard that. I know when I first heard that, I was like, like what? It's a healthy thing, but it's about how we do it. I love how the people of Simbas, I can't think of their name right now, but they always say that
Mhm.
conflict is the price we pay for intimacy. Because at
Yes.
the end of the day, you're supposed to be being heard, building trust, vulnerability, all those things. And most people were very afraid of being vulnerable because what are you going to do with my vulnerability? Are you going to use it against me? I think a big thing with me getting healthier too was me trusting God in a deeper way. I feel like my being afraid of rejection, being passive really showed me how much of a lack of trust and belief I actually had in God to protect me. Meaning, just because I'm a Christian, not everything's going to be amazing, but I do serve a God, even if I get hurt, who knows how to heal me. And so I don't need to come into every conversation with, oh my God, am I going to get hurt? You know what I mean? Like, I have internal, there's tools that I'm sure we'll talk about later, but one of the tools I do a lot of times when I'm having conversations is internal self-talk with myself and with God. And it helps tremendously, at least for me, where I'm like, okay, Lord, you hear this conversation, right? Please help me to have the right words to say, but you're protecting me, right? You're here with me. I'm not by myself, right? Like, you're here, right? I'm safe. And then I'm talking to my body because my body's being triggered because my body's like, oh no. But I'm also talking to my body like, body, we're safe. We're okay. You're gonna be all
Mhm.
right. We're gonna get
Mhm.
through this. You're okay. I'm doing breathing techniques. I can breathe before, during, and after a conversation. So there's different things to kind of help me be emotionally regulated while I'm making the decision to be assertive.
Mm.
Um,
When you think about, so that's passive, you share some tools for that. What if my communication style is passive aggressive?
mhm. I think it's the same thing. I think a lot of the tools go across the board.
Mhm.
I would honestly say the biggest thing to me is what is my communication style?
Mhm.
What are the mindsets or the lies? Because sometimes we have good mindsets, but a lot of times it's bad mindsets. So, what are the negative, bad mindsets that come along with my style? If I'm passive aggressive, I really want to be heard, but I'm not sure how you're going to hear me. And I don't want you to think I'm a bad person. So, it's like a combination of aggressiveness and passiveness together. Um, but if I start dealing with those mindsets that are not true, then I'll start to change my behavior. So, a big point for me when I'm dealing with people is let's figure out what your communication style is. Once we do that, let's talk about the mindsets. Let's talk about childhood. Let's talk about trauma. Where did this come from? And what do you think is happening when you do this communication style slash behavior? Because it is coming with behaviors, right? What do you think is happening? So if I'm yelling at you, Kendra, do I think that that's keeping me safe because I'm keeping you at bay or I'm intimidating you, right? Well, then I got to start putting the word of God and different things in to be like, that's not the truth. I have to come literally. I look at it as honoring God's word above my behaviors, but I need to put the word in to start renewing my mind or having even on a natural side, I am statements. I am statements are great because you're dealing with your subconscious thoughts, right? So if I think I suck, or if maybe I think If I'm aggressive and I'm like this, then people will respect me. If
Mhm.
I change it and say, I am thoughtful of others. You know what I mean? And I continually, for 21 days, if you do I am statements, and I'm speaking out, I am thoughtful of others. One of my biggest I am statements is I am safe.
Mhm.
I say it all the time. I am safe.
That's one of my statements too. I am safe.
I am safe.
And that safety is not just physical safety, but it's emotional safety, it's spiritual safety, it's psychological
Mhm.
safety. All those things matter. And I'm really glad that you're bringing that up because, again, the reason why we're talking about this is because some of the burnout that we might be experiencing or the stress or even the anxiety that we get is because we haven't learned how to communicate what our needs are in a way that actually promotes things being different, right? And so we don't want to communicate passively. We don't want to communicate passive aggressively, and we
Mhm.
don't want to communicate aggressively. We want to communicate assertively.
Mhm.
So, what did you have to unlearn for you to become more assertive in your communication?
Hey, I, I learned a lot, but let me try to think. Oh my God. I would say one of the first things I was really afraid to say no. I mean, that was a big fear of mine because I did not want people to be unhappy with me. And on the other side, I didn't want to let people down. But if I got to the root of it, I really was scared if I let you down, you wouldn't want to be bothered with me. You know what I mean? It was really rejection, but I was saying, oh, I want to be helpful. But it was really rejection. So I think one of the first things I started saying to myself is, you deserve this. Meaning,
Mm,
like, you deserve to be loved and appreciated. And I started saying to myself, you are teaching people how to treat you. I don't know where that came from, but I started to say that. Angela, you are teaching people how to treat you when they say certain things and you don't say anything. Or they're disrespectful and you just let it slide because you don't want to start anything. I'm literally teaching them it's totally okay to treat me like that. So to me, I remember the first time I said no to somebody very important to me, I was like shaking like a leaf. I was so freaked out. I was like, and I called them and I was like, I kid you not, I was like so afraid, shaking, I was quivering, and it was just me telling them I wasn't able to do what they asked me to do. And I remember I said it, they didn't trip, they didn't say anything. They just said, okay, no problem. I'll ask such and such. And I remember hanging up the phone like, I did it. And they didn't trip. And so to me, the more you have those brave moments and you step out there and then you start having more and more positive experiences, the more you're like, oh, I can do this. And then people stop asking you after a while and you're like, hey, I can help. I
mhm.
can help.
So not being afraid to say no
It,
or being afraid of saying no was one of the things you had to unlearn,
it,
right?
yeah.
Yes, yes.
But to me, it encouraged me to start doing more. Meaning, like, okay, that's one boundary, but what's another one? Then it's like, okay, I don't want to have bad conversations where people are being disrespectful and I don't say anything. Okay. You know what I mean? And so to me, it becomes like this, what's the word? It starts to just become more and more because now you're getting more comfortable.
Momentum. You gain some
Yes,
momentum
yes,
or yeah.
yes, yes, yes. So now, like, I'm doing things in counseling sessions I probably would have never been able to do, meaning stop couples from arguing, breaking people. I've had to break people apart and be like, you go to that room over there, you go over there. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to do that before. I would have been like, oh my gosh, this couple is literally fighting right in front of me. What do I do? And I might have sat there for a minute. Now I'm like, hey, this
Hmm.
ain't what we're here for. We're here for a counseling session. We're not here for that. And I do it a little bit nicer than that, y'all. But you know what I'm saying? It's helped build momentum. And I think to me, one of my favorite scriptures is love your neighbor as you love yourself because I've learned it's the B part that's really the A part. The more I've learned to do this, the more I've realized, wow, you are loving on yourself And I didn't realize it at the beginning. I just was getting sick of behavior, whether it was other people's behavior or myself.
Mhm.
But the more I started putting in boundaries and sticking up and saying how I felt and all this other stuff, the more I'm like, I realized, wow, I do have a voice. I do deserve to be heard. I'm worthy of love in a healthy manner, and I'm worthy of healthy relationships. And the more I started putting things in place to get to that goal of what I wanted, whether it was me or others, like one of the things I started doing for myself was saying to myself, I need to learn how to be my own personal best friend.
Mhm.
Meaning, I could be very harsh on myself internally. And I was like, you need to be nicer to yourself. You stuck with yourself 24/7. So if everybody else is nice and you expecting everybody else to be nice, why are you not doing that for yourself? So a lot of it's been self-talk, looking at things that I believe that's not true, and then getting scriptures and saying, you know what, I'm going to focus on truth. And until this stops, I am statements, breathing, sleep, water, exercise, trying to eat just different things, or even getting out of unhealthy relationships that are friends who've been in my life for years, where I'm like, you know what, this don't work for me because you're not healthy and you're not treating me the way I desire to be. But it's taken time. It didn't happen overnight. But the more I did it, the more I was like, wow, I'm choosing to love myself, and it's doing the A part. I'm learning how to love my neighbor as I love myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
So good. Just the thought of that by choosing to love yourself, it actually has helped you just improve your overall well-being in helping you and just enjoy your life more. And
Come on now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
Mhm.
has, because I think about it like, okay, well, like the example I used earlier, if I know I need to have a hard conversation with you and I keep putting it off, I'm worrying about it.
Mhm.
Now I'm quicker to be like, you know what, let me just pick up the phone and have this conversation. And I'm probably going to pray about it. Now, some of the steps I tell people is prepare for the conversation, practice, get a friend you feel safe with and practice a hard conversation. You know what I mean? Self-talk, I am statements, breathing. There's different things to prepare you for those kind of conversations. But to me, when I have it quicker versus waiting 4 weeks, I'm more at peace. I'm not going to sleep thinking about like, dang, I got to talk to Kendra about that. I'm like, oh, we talked and we came to a solution. I'm asleep. To me, I have not realized it until recently how much just me making a choice to love on myself more affected all these different areas. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's like you got me deep in my thoughts right now because yeah, I actually wasn't expecting that as we talked about the communication part of this, that it was going to bring us around to loving on yourself because so much of what this retreat is really about is what does that actually look like? And I feel like you are actually giving us some ideas about what that looks like in a way that people may be already doing, but they didn't even realize, hey, this is a form of self care or soul care. Me learning how to say no, me learning how to choose myself. One of the proudest moments that I remember having with my daughter is her being in a relationship with someone and her finding out some bad news about this person, and she could have chose to stay in that relationship and she decided not to. And I told her, I said, I am so proud of you for choosing yourself
Mm-hmm.
because you could have stayed in this cycle that was very unhealthy. But you decided, you know what? I know that God created me for more than this.
Before. Yeah. And I think as women too, I mean, I always tell my job, like, when I get off, don't call me unless it's emergency because I'm going to my other job. Meaning I'm going to
Yes.
focus on my fam. I ain't got time to think about y'all. I
Hmm.
did my time. I'm moving to my other job.
Hmm.
I mean, we are household managers, we are chefs, we are maids, we are spousal support, we are, Dennis always says he's a CEO and I'm the COO, but we make decisions together, kind of thing. We do a lot, and I think as wives and mothers, or even just females, I think even growing up with a Barbie, like we've been kind of we're helpmeets. it's not even so much like that whole feminine thing of this is what we've been trained to do. We are helpmates. You know what I mean? We help, right? And sometimes we don't know how to help ourselves because we are helpmeets, meaning like, I know I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that and I'm supposed to do this. But it's the whole, I literally, my job right now, I'm helping my job create a mental health thing for all of our, like our leadership, our departments, and our consultants, because we deal with people all the time. And what we're seeing is people since COVID, mental health's gone down. People are way more angrier, way more emotional. Coping skills are right now like, right?
Hmm.
So we're in the process of doing that. And it's just been so rewarding having those kind of conversations because leadership wise, we're like, we got to put our oxygen mask on first. And most time we just don't. And I think as women, we're like, okay, I got to go do this. I got to take the kids to gymnastics. I got to go do this. And I know I need to do this for work. And I know I need to do this for work. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, but when I take the time to be like, doing some deep exercise, breathing for myself, go get a massage or go for a nature walk or get some sleep, or I'm drinking water or spending time with girlfriends I enjoy or going to that counseling session for myself. I'm doing that so I can do all this other stuff. And because my life has increased, meaning I'm pouring out more than I did before. This is probably the highest I've given out, meaning my job is quality. I'm dealing with a lot of people and talking to a lot of candidates. I have a team under me. I'm in leadership meetings. I'm in initiatives. And then I go off of work and I'm going to counseling sessions, right? And then we're doing living well. This is the most in my whole life I've ever poured out at this height. And so I
Hmm.
had to step up my stuff because I was like, I'm hitting walls I didn't know was, I'm getting burnt out. I'm dragging. I'm exhausted. And then I was like, you know what? I need to step up my self care and loving on myself. And I need to put my oxygen mask on. And I need to do it a lot more than I've been doing it. And once you start doing it, it just feels, it's a really great feeling. And I'm not perfect with it, y'all, for real. But I'm always constantly trying to do something to be like, okay, my time with God, my resting with the Lord, taking walks, drinking water, eat whatever, even if I just do one thing in a day, it feels good, even though you don't really realize what you're doing until you get there and you're like, oh wow, this is what I've been doing. I know it. But it
So
feels good.
when you put on your oxygen mask, that can look a lot of different ways,
For a lot of people.
specifically as it relates to communication. How would you say, what does that look like? So for me, being able to communicate with the people around me, whether it's my family or it's at work or wherever I am, it's with my girlfriends, whatever it is, how do I put the oxygen mask on in my communication? What does that look like?
Girl, that is such a good question, and it can go so many different ways. Like when I
Mhm.
think of work, um, my boss got me a work coach. So I have 6 months worth of coaching with this person, right?
Mhm.
And I sat down with them and said, I need to fill my cup more, right? And at the same time, I feel like I need to have this conversation with, I have three bosses. So I have my
Mhm.
immediate boss, I have my country boss, and I have my global boss.
Mhm.
I have to sit down with my global boss and have a conversation about my position because I feel like I'm either about to get extremely burnt out or I'm gonna get stagnant. Can you help me with this conversation?
Mhm.
Right. But then it took
Mhm.
me sitting down, like, well, what do you even want?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And my global boss in the conversation, he's like, you're right. She's like, but you can be a little direct. I said, am I coming across like a jerk? I said, because I'm not meaning to. And I said it in a, like, a, she laughed. She's like, no, no. And I don't know if that, people say no, but they don't mean no.
Right.
I was being honest. Like, I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to be burnt out, but I appreciate all of this. So to me, what I'm saying is sometimes it's getting a coach like yourself, you know what I mean? Or getting somebody who can help you or sitting down with somebody. But a big part of it was me sitting down and saying, what do I want? Communication helps you to be heard to get to your goal. Whether it's in a relationship, if it's with me and my husband, the goal is for us to make a decision and get on the same page. But if we're fighting because I'm in self-protect mode and he's in self-protect mode, we're not going to get there. But the goal is to be heard. So what needs to be created in my behavior, but also how can this room become a safe room for us to come to a place where we can make agreement and I can be heard and get my goal. So to me, that's a work example and a personal example of putting that on in a communication way. Is really knowing what's your goal, what do you want, what's standing in the way of that goal, communication wise, and do you care about yourself enough? Do you care about the goal enough to be like, I'm going to have this conversation? Like for me, with that example with me and Dennis when we first got married, to me, having that moment of I'm going to put my big girl panties on and have a brave conversation, for me, that started a big old process of my oxygen mask. And I didn't realize it at that moment, you know?
That was three really good questions. What
Yeah.
is your goal? What do you want? And what's standing in the way?
Yeah. Because to me, like my goal could be, let's just use my job, for example. Maybe I want to change my role, right? But what I really want is to have enjoyment and fulfillment in my role,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's standing in my way?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's just my mindsets,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because in the conversation, she was like, well, maybe we'll create a role and you can do da 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 da. And in my head, I was like, you know what I mean? And my face was like, okay. And then when I got off the call, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you really don't know how impactful your communication is and your communication style and how much it's attached to wrong mindsets and just behavior of not really taking care of yourself until it can almost be too late or you start working on it and then you're like, oh my
Yes.
gosh. Because like let me say this really quickly too. Passive is me thinking more about other people than me thinking about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Aggressive is mostly thinking about myself more than I'm thinking about other people, and you're not open to communication with those two areas. And assertive is I'm thinking about me, but I'm thinking about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm open. I think passive aggressive is I am thinking, but I'm not open to the communication because I'm scared of how it's gonna go. You know what I mean? Assertive is I'm open to communication and I'm open to think about both of us. You know,
What you've shared with us has been very impactful. It's actually not what I was expecting, and in a good way. I mean that in the best way possible, because I think you made it very practical in terms of what does this look like? Why is it important? Why does it matter? And then even giving us some questions and things for us to think about. And so I'm very grateful for what you've shared and for the women that are going to get to experience this. I wish I could share this with every woman that I know. And so the women that are on here right now, this was such a blessing. So right now, a person might be like, you know what? I want to talk to Angie. And honestly, they might even be thinking about them and their spouse both needing to talk to you about their marriage, their relationship. And I want to give you an opportunity to share with them. How would they stay connected to you after this?
I do have a LinkedIn profile. I also have Instagram as well. There's different ways to reach out. Just send me a message. My husband does counseling. He does coaching as well. Of course, I can do counseling on the side as well. But if you want to just like a 30-minute meeting just to kind of talk and just see where you're at, it's what I call an intake meeting to kind of see like, hey, am I for you or not? Another thing I always say to people too is you need to feel comfortable. You're sharing your world with me. As a counselor, you're sharing information people may not know. You need to get a good feel. It's almost like I'm seeing if I can help you, but you should be seeing if I'm a good fit for you as well. But I'm totally open to those I don't charge for or anything, just to kind of connect and see if it's something I can help with. Or maybe it's something I'm saying, hey, I know somebody else, or I'm passing to my husband.
All right. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you. This was fun.